potato salad. And the hamburgers will come in batches, I'm sure, because they need a pan. But anyway, feel free to help yourself to some food, and then we're gonna walk. When we're done eating, we're gonna walk back up to that building up there and have a short program to kind of tell you what this Firewise community is all about. We'll bring the beer and all that up there, don't worry. But we're gonna eat here first. So feel free to help yourself to hamburgers, and let's get the food started.
And when you get your food, there's not enough places to sit here. If you go through that white gate across and turn left, there's a picnic table that's 45 feet long. So most of us should be able to sit there.
Yeah, let me just say, because I saw this place, it's pretty cool. So I do recommend you get your food, walk towards the house, take a left, and then there's this like shaded, very long, very nice, very cool picnic space. So recommend you check it out.
Please.
Okay.
See, now it's like, I guess I'm going.
I married the farmer's daughter.
The farmer's daughter.
That's she never did. That's
don't know how to get to you. And so this Firewise community is a way to do that. So let's go to the lower left. You see the state of California. In the state of California, of course, sponsors or you know, owns or whatever, CAL FIRE. And there's a bunch of CAL FIRE guys in the back. And they're here today because they interface with me and the you know, Firewise board. So John, you want to just introduce your team real quick?
So Mark Jorgensen, one of the local battalion chiefs in Sonoma, or South Sonoma here. And the engine company behind me is your local engine company from Petaluma. So if you guys do have a fire, there's going to be the first engine that probably shows up here. It's really good to see the community come out, because that's half the battle with the Firewise community, is just getting together as a community and getting to know each other. And the whole thing is helping each other, helping yourself and helping each other. I think this is a great start to it. And I know CAL FIRE's involvement is working with the president and the committee members and looking at different grants. And we also have resources to actually do some of the field work and kind of seeing the best places to put field breaks that protect most of the community. So
yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out. So now if you come down here to the lower right, you see Sonoma County. And of course, Sonoma County used to provide firefighting resources from Rancho Adobe, but Rancho Adobe Fire Department no longer exists because it was annexed into the Sonoma County Fire District. So that's our new provider of county firefighting resources. But Sonoma County also sponsors this organization called Fire Safe Sonoma. And we have the executive director, Ben Nichols. Ben, I'll just point you out now because you're going to be up here in a minute. So the executive director of Fire Safe Sonoma also interacts with our organization to make sure that, you know, we know how to get this community going, and there's rules and policies and all that kind of stuff. And then finally, Firewise USA is an organization sponsored by the National Fire Protection Association. And so this organization writes fire safety codes and stuff like that, you know, makes recommendations that may get adopted at state and county levels. But they also run this Firewise program, of which we're a chapter. So I'm just saying, like, private organizations want to help, Sonoma County wants to help, The state of California wants to help. The federal government also wants to help, but they don't know how to get to you. Yeah, they can all create websites and stuff like that, but you know, maybe you'll never find it. So the purpose of this community is to interface with all of these organizations, which I do, and then try to interface with the community of people who live here on the other side. And that's why we're here today. So just thought I'd try to explain this because there's a lot of people that want to help, they just don't know how to get to you. And that's what this Firewise community is fundamentally all about. Okay, so really there's only 4 things we're trying to do. Pretty simple. Number 1 is education and outreach, which we're doing right at this moment. About 3 other topics. Number 1 is how to protect our homes. Turns out that your home doesn't necessarily burn down because the fire burned up to your home and then lit your home on fire. No, the fire throws embers miles ahead, and those embers land in your gutters, and they get into your vents, and they get underneath your house, and you know, lots of places. Maybe to the firewood pile you have next to the house, and that's how your house lights on fire, long before the fire ever comes close. So the first topic that we'd like to educate people on is the topic of home hardening, protecting your buildings. The second is protecting your properties. Now, if the fire actually does burn up to your house, it will light your house on fire, even if your house is hardened. So we want to also have barriers, no fuel close to your house, and that's really what defensible space is all about. Clear areas around your house, around your outbuildings, so that fire actually can't touch them. I mean, it stops short. Okay, and then the 4th topic is to protect your families, our families. And that's really about readiness and evacuation. Like, if there is a fire, what are you going to do? Are you going to go up the hill? Are you going to go down the hill? What if you can't go down the hill? What then? So, what we're trying to do is these 4 things. Is build a community and discuss together and educate and disseminate information about protecting homes, properties, and people. And I might add livestock and pets, because I have some livestock I like not to die either. So that's what we're trying to do. Okay, how did this come to be? So a group of neighbors got together about a year ago. We were discussing wildfire. We talked to a neighborhood Firewise organization. And the consensus of the group of neighbors is we should have a Firewise organization. So then they said, hey Jim, you just retired. You must have all kinds of free time. Why don't you start this? So I was, as they say, voluntold to start this. So then I get engaged in the process, and we had to define a community boundary, and we had a kickoff meeting. That led to the people in yellow shirts agreeing to be on the board of directors. We conducted a survey. We created a 3-year plan, which I need to put on the website, because it's too much for tonight. But there is a 3-year plan of what we're going to do on those 4 topics I previously talked about. We had to document that we made the necessary investments of time and money. We submitted the application and we got approval. So today, this Firewise community, as of a couple weeks ago, is alive and in good standing. So just to remind you, this is the map of where we are in this Firewise community, and I'm thinking we are right about here, somewhere right here, right now. Maybe here, Bill, right there. But anyway, it's all of the properties that are east of Adobe Road that might be accessed directly from Adobe Road or might be accessed from Manor Lane, Washington Street, Edwin Kelsey Way, Sonoma Mountain Road, Lynch Road, Hardin Lane, and Jacobson Lane. So it's about 140 APNs, as I say, including yours, which is why you're here. So that's our community. And just real quick, if you look at the Sonoma County Wildfire Risk Index maps, we live in a hotbed. There's a little bit of area, according to Sonoma County, that's high risk. Some is very high risk. And most of it's extreme risk. And it doesn't get any higher than extreme risk. So, I'm just saying, this is a real thing. And I think you know that, but, just showing you that this is Sonoma County's view. Now, CAL FIRE has maps that are, frankly, maybe a notch down from that, but still, nobody disagrees with the fact that we're in a risky area. And then last year, there were several close calls. Gary and Michael Caruana live on this road right here, off Sonoma, this is Sonoma Mountain Road. But last year, there was a 4-acre fire that very nearly got out of control, but, you know, thanks to our Johnny on the spot firefighting resources, they got on it and knocked it down before it got very far. Then later in the summer, there was another fire up on top of the mountain because there had been a vandalism incident that broke a gate, and a welder showed up to fix the gate. And in the process of welding, a spark landed in the grass, and there goes a fire. Now, it ended up being a small fire, and they got it out quickly, but you know, it only takes one of those sparks to start a big fire. So I'm just saying, like, this is a real thing, and that's why personally I'm involved, because I think I think we can make a difference. So here's some of the things that are happening now. In the summer of 2026, there's been this project called the Sonoma Mountain Road Shaded Fuel Break. And so a good example, just up the road from us, this is what it used to look like. So vegetation right up to the road. Then these crews showed up. This is the Sonoma County Fuels Crew. These people are funded by, what's it called? Measure H, thank you. Remember the word measure. Measure H is the 0.25% sales tax that was passed a few years ago. And it funds, for example, crews of people who remove fuel. And so this is what that same area looks like now, a little different. So why would you do this? Well, 2 reasons. Number one is if there's a fire, this gives a point at which you can maybe stop the fire from spreading. Won't go across the road. But the second thing is if we need to evacuate, you know, we don't want to evacuate to an inferno that's got all of this stuff on fire on both sides. We want to evacuate from here, a place where even if the fire burned through, none of it went into the upper parts of the trees. So this is an example of a project. Now, we didn't, the West Sonoma Mountain Firewise Community didn't do this project, but we helped do it because they needed approval from landowners, and we helped them. They didn't know what landowners were, how to contact them, but I did. So we were able to help them secure necessary approval to do this project. I want to show you another fun thing that happened this summer. On June 30th, if some of you remember the big walls of smoke that were on top of Sonoma Mountain, it was this Mistui prescribed burn that burned 44 acres of property, you know, in a careful, intentional way. And my wife and I went there. It was very, very interesting because what I saw is that when grass that's been grazed or mowed is laying on the ground, it burns with very low intensity. It does burn, but very low intensity. And if it's like waist high, it burns with a lot more intensity. If it's thistles and weeds that are like head high, whoa, the flames would light this roof on fire. And the reason it mattered was because, for example, on this property, if you see down here, there is a bunch of Himalayan blackberries. And so where the fire burned with low intensity up to those blackberries, it just stopped at the blackberries. Where it burned right up to them with high intensity, it lit them on fire. And then they had flames that were 30, 40 feet in the air. It's unbelievable to me. So what it really meant is that having a low intensity fire is in your favor, because you can stop it and it doesn't spread and it doesn't light everything else on fire. Having a high intensity fire burn right up to your buildings are gone. And that's really what a lot of the defensible space kind of discussions about. Anyway, this for me was very interesting. I watched them burn those 44 acres. They were super careful. And it was very eye-opening, not just how they did it, but just like watching wildfire burn and how it behaved. Okay, so where can you get more information? We have a website, SonomaMountainFirewise.org. And of course, we have this quarterly email newsletter. The problem is we only know about, like, I don't know, 40% of the emails. Joan, what do you think? 40, 50% of the emails for people on the mountain. So if you could help us get more people on this email list, that'd be great. If you forget the website, these signs that we paid for, the signs were kind of 2 intentions. One, yes, to tell you it's a risky situation. And not so much to tell you, but to tell like all the high school kids who come up here and party every Friday and Saturday night that like you're driving into a high-risk area. The second thing was a little bit of advertising, because our web address is here, and this QR code will also take you to this same website. So it's a way to like tell the community we exist, and here's how to find us. Okay. One last thing. So how can you help? Well, the first thing is engage with us, share your thoughts. I mean, it's been great talking to people tonight. Second thing is help us recruit neighbors. We'd like to expand that email list. It's hard to do that because we don't know who the people are and how to get them on the list. If any of you want, you could volunteer to join the board of directors. It's gonna, it's some work, but it's also interesting and fun and a great way to meet people. Later, I will pass to you an email about how to document your investment in fire safety. Work you do to mow and to clean up and do things around your house, and whether it's defensive space or home hardening, whatever. I don't need that right now, but we will need that, because in order for this community to remain in good standing, we have to show that basically every property has done at least an hour's worth of work. An hour is nothing. If you do anything, you're gonna easily burn an hour, but I need it documented so that we can remain in good standing. And then there'll be some more opportunities to come. I don't want to get into it tonight, but for example, we've thought about maybe we should volunteer to do home gardening and defensive space projects for people who aren't able to do it themselves. I mean, I'd volunteer to spend an afternoon doing that. Maybe some of you would too. We'll come back to you with that when we have more information. Okay, so I wanted to say thanks for joining us. Hopefully it was a good use of your Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. And I want to introduce Ben Nichols, my uncle Ben, who wants to say a few words as well.
Don't want to holler too loud like Chief Jorgensen. He's got that command presence. Welcome. I'm checked out on this guy. So, Ben Nichols, Fire Safe Sonoma. Those of you that may have known me in the past, I used to wear the same uniform as our Cal Fire partners in the back of the room. And in December of last year, I retired after 32 years of service with the state, and want to focus more on proactive fuels work, wildfire resilience before those future fires happen. In the fire service, we talk about a career fire. It's the one fire that you experience that was beyond all others throughout the rest of your career. And for me, that was 2017 with the October fires, specifically the Tubbs, the Adobe, and the Nuns. I finished out as the operations chief here for Sonoma County for CAL FIRE. And so from 17, we went into 19 for Kincaid, and we did a lot of amazing work with our local government partners across agency boundaries, department boundaries to bring everybody together for that firefight so that we avoided what we were experiencing in 17. The difference in 19 was that we knew instantaneously that we had a major fire developing, and subsequently it was the largest fire in county history. The thing that we had going for us in 19 was the evacuation component. In 17, we had fire engines that were evacuating people, not able to focus on the firefight because firefighters' first priority is your life, right? The fire can be dealt with later. We need to take care of the people that are in front of that fire. So in 19, folks were able to get out of harm's way through the advancements in the evacuation system and allowed firefighters to focus on that firefight. So the deal was that 1910 was the beginning of modern wildland firefighting. It was the fires in the Idaho Midwest where we had millions of acres burned, and it created the modern requirements for CAL FIRE and fire agencies to put fires out within the first operational period. It was 1910. We have not seen a significant decrease in the acreage, even though we have now C-130 aircraft that are dropping 4,000 gallons every target compared to the 1,200 gallons from the S-2s. We have night flying helicopters, we have infrared cameras that are picking up fires, but yet we're still having large damage fires. It drives me to the point that we can do something different. On a big day, I could bring 100 firefighters, stripping out firefighters, and bringing folks from across the county to bring air to a fuels project. County of Sonoma is north of 400,000 people, sorry, I'm working. That's a lot of work that can get done with 400,000 people. So seeing your community come together tonight as our 42nd Firewise community here gives me great joy that we've got folks that recognize that we can do more.
Maybe I'll just hold. Let's just do that. Yeah, it just gets worse. So I left Cal Fire at the end of my career, went to work for Fire Safe Sonoma in February. Fire Safe Sonoma is a small but mighty organization. I'm the first permanent person for that organization, funded through Measure H, the fire tax, through a partnership with Sonoma County Fire Chiefs. My right-hand people are Marika Ramsden, who works regularly with Jim as our Firewise coordinator for the county. And then Sophie Levesque is also our county coordinator on the Fire Safe Council side of the house. We have a partnership with the California Climate Action Corps that they allow us to host fellows in the organization. They basically volunteer their time for a year, helping us do the good work here in Sonoma County. As I mentioned, so 1910, we have this devastating fire that kills in the neighborhood of 80 wildland firefighters. It was a conflagration never seen before, creating modern day firefighting. This is the top 10 most destructive fires in California. You see any fires in the early 1900s, mid 1900s? There's one straggler, 1991, the tunnel fire down in Oakland. Ultimately, a very small fire, 1,600 acres compared to the conflagrations we see, but 2,900 homes lost during that fire. So, what has changed? The fuels. We have suppressed the fires on the landscape. Jim showed you the pre and post pictures of Sonoma Mountain Road. Our landscape needs to burn. It has come to be through the adaptation of wildfire. We took that fire off the landscape. So over the course of decades and now a century, we have now gotten to a spot where those fuels are excessive for what they were historically. And when we have critical burning conditions, that creates the fire, to Jim's point, that Captain Hoff and his crew at best is keeping up with the fire, but they're not containing that fire because the fire is moving too fast. You got spotting that's happening 3 miles out in front of the main body of the fire. You got winds blowing over 100 miles an hour. To expect that firefighters can contain that fire is a fallacy. We don't send folks to fight hurricanes or tornadoes, but yet that's what our wildland firefighters are doing when we have these wind-driven firestorms that we experience, specifically in the late fall for us here locally. So what can we do different? This is the fire history for Sonoma County. Jim and I have talked about it. CAL FIRE's mission is to contain 95% of the fires to 10 acres or less. CAL FIRE meets and exceeds that every single year. But that leaves 5, and realistically 2% of those fires that become the conflagrations that we're so accustomed to at this point, unfortunately. And so I will leave you that throughout each year, there are over 100 wildland fires that occur here in Sonoma County. Those are the 95% fires. That's what we have all of our firefighters out there to do to contain those fires, and they do an amazing job of it. We got one of those C-130s this summer up at Sonoma Air Attack Base. We have the Fire Hawk up at Boggs Mountain that is bringing 1,000 gallons of water. Those 95% of the fires don't stand a chance. It's the 2% that we're talking about when we talk about the things that need to happen, specifically to the home hardening and and now the new Zone 0. So we bring in Firewise. So I mentioned on a good day, 100 firefighters to a project, a lot of great work getting done. That's compared to the greater than 400,000 residents that make up Sonoma County. So this opportunity with your community coming together, neighbor helping neighbor, and figuring out how to create that wildfire resilience in the community is what's going to start moving that needle, because there's just not enough firefighters, there's not enough government resources to push this over the line. It takes everybody bringing stewardship and bringing that proactive approach to living safely with wildfire. So just some quick numbers for you guys. This was before you guys came on board, but at the time we were 40 Firewise. You guys are now the 42nd. So we're 23,000 plus and growing in people, and 12,000 homes that we're protecting. And last year, so Chief Jorgensen runs Hood Mountain Fire Center. They do the roadside fuels work along with the Measure H crew and some of the more strategic ridgetop fuel breaks. Chief Jorgensen, if you counted up the salary for the folks, we're talking single-digit millions for the one crew. Sonoma County, the 40 Firewise at the time, created $15 million of wildfire resilience in the county. That's huge, and I don't think we're capturing it all because people don't know how to capture it. That's what Jim was alluding to for the information he's looking for. Because downstream, government's really good about capturing what is being done by government. So there's maps and there's reports, there's all these great things. Historically, we haven't had a good way to show what communities are doing, what regular residents are out there doing. And Firewise gives us that ability to actually capture the risk reduction that's taking place in your communities to help hopefully steer this insurance nightmare that so many folks are dealing with, right? You know, the biggie would be reducing premiums, but at this point, I just want to save policies, right? I mean, show of hands, or if you're not comfortable, that's okay, but has anybody had to change insurance carriers due to being canceled, right? So this is reality. So insurance, communities helping each other through that process, and you guys are the tip of the spear. Jim mentioned it earlier, there's been a lot of government projects, Sonoma Mountain is one of them, right? So the project started over in the Sonoma Valley in the Diamond A subdivision, part of the Grove Street Fire Safe Council Firewise Community, as a secondary evacuation route over the hill down to the valley floor over here. We run into a regular deal where government doesn't have necessarily the relationships with the individual landowners. So there's landowners that say, thank you, but I don't want you on my property. But now Jim or Joan shows up, and it's like, oh, well, if Joan says it's important that I should buy on, then absolutely, I'll sign up, right? So that's another huge benefit for your Firewise community, helping bring landowners into the conversation. So, a great success story. Everybody's familiar with the Woodside Fire, end of July here. Typical afternoon on the coast. Nothing different than any other day. Blustery afternoon, winds coming down the California coastline. But that day there was an ignition. And so that ignition became the Woodside Fire, burning over 150 acres, starting up here in the Salt Point State Park. Your white boxes here are all structures throughout that fire area. And that fire, for those of you that are familiar with the Ocean Cove store, at Ocean Cove, big abalone spot historically, the fire spotted across that cove, got established on the south end of the Ocean Cove campground, then spotted across Stillwater Cove, and ultimately the final spot was getting into the subdivision proper of Timber Cove. But this January, the Central Coast Firewise Community, led by Chris Kilgore and Mim Anderson, utilized the Listos tool trailer that is a Fire Safe Sonoma resource that we got a grant 4 years ago that we provide to our Firewise communities. And they had maintained a shaded fuel break on the south side of an undeveloped piece of property. Doing some quick Zillow math, the homes in the immediate area from that spot fire north, that small investment by the county years ago resulted in potentially $11 million worth of homes saved from that firefight. We provided the defense, and our fire partners provided the offense to get in there and knock that fire down. But some amazing work done by Chris and her team, utilizing the tool trailers as a resource to you guys downstream when they were helping me. So, I didn't have any conversations that popped up tonight about Zone 0 and the 0 to 5 defensible space rules that came out from Board of Forestry. But, just in case you're interested or concerned, the Board of Forestry has approved those rules. So those rules are now going live. That immediately affects new construction. So if you're building a home in the state responsibility area or the very high local responsibility area, you will be required to meet the Zone 0 standard. 1 and 2 have not changed. That's the 30-foot and the 100-foot that you guys all should be very familiar with, being residents out here in the SRA. But the Zone 0 is, to Jim's point, that ember reduction zone. This is the deal where, fun fact for the crowd, the Zone 1, the 30-foot zone, when it first came online through the state, it was to prevent a house fire from extending into the wildland and burning the wildland. Over the course of time, we recognized that that was a bigger problem of wildfires coming into homes, and so that was what created the 100-foot. We needed to get some clearance between that oncoming fire and that house so that that fire, through direct flame impingement or radiant heat hitting that house in conduction, burning that house down. We've now graduated into that Zone 0 when we're talking about those wind-driven catastrophic fires with that ember cast that's 3 miles in advance of that main body of fire. You guys have all seen the news. You've seen the sheeting embers across surface streets in downtown LA, Santa Rosa, you name it. That's what Zone 0 is for. So there's a lot of concern out there. Board of Forestry really did their best to meet in the middle, because there was a strong group of folks that was saying nothing flammable within that 5 feet. And then there were folks that said, you can't take away my plants, I need to keep the vegetation around my house, you can't have it. So this is trying to meet both intentions. And so basically the rule is that the eave line, you're looking at your house and figuring out the eave. You don't have eaves on the side of the house, or they don't come out very far. It's a minimum of 1 foot off of the outside wall of your house that there's nothing combustible. No wood chips. They keep talking about firewood. I don't know why, because firewood is always supposed to be away from the house anyway. That's the thing that they're highlighting in Zone 0. And then once you get out from underneath the drip line of your eave, if you still have 5 feet to go off the side of the house, now you can have low 18-inch plants spaced out that are non-woody material. They're like a really soft, like a daisy or something that doesn't have a woody structure to it, or grass. But that's it. And then basically there was a push early on from the insurance industry about trees getting wiped out in that area. Luckily, the Board of Forestry held their ground on that one. You can have that tree. It just needs to be pruned back away from the house and maintained 10 foot from the chimney and 5 feet from the house. And those ladder fuels that Jim was talking about to prevent that ground fire from getting into the top of the tree. There'll be more information to come as that goes, and lots of information to share with you guys. I just wanted to give those in the crowd kind of a quick heads up on that. Has officially passed as of last Wednesday. CAL FIRE being the agency of jurisdiction for those inspections in the SRA, the state responsibility area, know that this is going to be difficult for a lot of landowners to transition. So it's going to be a multi-year phased-in approach that you'll be noticed of what is no longer able to be in the space that you've planted it, but with some time to be able to adjust that gardening and the setup around your house. Further deal on the Zone 0 was the fence. So those of you that were familiar with the Valley Fire in 2015 up in Lake County, that was the first time that I heard local firefighters talking about redwood fences basically being a wick through a subdivision, and the fire traveling down fences and getting into one house and starting that house on fire. And then once it got through that house, it started the fence on the other side on fire, and it went and found the next house. That's a biggie to 0 to 5 in Zone 0, is that when you replace your fence, a new fence will be required to not have combustible material within 5 feet of your house to break the link. And remember, it's to help you protect your house And the firefighters, if houses aren't burning, they can focus on perimeter control, containing that fire and putting it out, versus once homes start burning, life, property, and environment are the three things in order that are the priorities for firefighters across the board. So if the folks have evacuated, we're not worried about life safety, great. But now a structure burns, they're going to try to save what they can from your house. And now that wildfire continues to grow. So if we're not getting homes catching fire, they can continue to focus on putting out the fire, which is ultimately the threat to that home and all the other homes in the area. Downstream, I'm just as guilty as anybody else. Exterior sheds within that 5 foot will also need to be non-combustible. So non-combustible siding and a non-combustible roof in order to have them in that area. This one doesn't really show it, but a deck. So if you have a deck off the back of your house, it's not a foot off the deck like the rest of the house, it's 5 foot because the decks are much more likely to catch fire and burn into the house. So decks, pergolas, and stairs 5 feet from those. But when we talk about 0 to 5, so many folks are gonna say, where do I start, what do I do? Start with that 1 foot. We know that you have to do that, but start with the 1 foot and grow out from there. I'm hiring on a new person for our team tomorrow that will be a person that can help communities do home assessments for home hardening and defensible space. We look forward to making it into like in-service workshops where we've got a couple of folks that volunteer to have their house be the guinea pig. It's an assessment. It's not an inspection. It's not anything more than just information to you and your surroundings. Just some examples of that wood fence into the house. Great clearance, right? Nothing combustible, but that redwood fence comes into the side of the house. Fire gets established, goes up into the eaves, into the attic, and it burns the house down. Garbage cans was a big thing in 17 and subsequent fires after that. Get them away from the house. When there's that red flag warning coming, that's the easy button. You should be pulling all of your combustible lawn furniture away from the house. You should be getting your garbage cans away from the house, doing that quick sweep to make sure the leaves haven't accumulated in your gutters since you last looked. But this is something that you absolutely can change because I totally blew it. But if I remember right, I saw an infographic that said your typical curbside can with green waste in it, when it catches fire, is equivalent to about 9 gallons of gasoline burning underneath the heat of your house. So picture what that would look like. Jim asked me to talk about home hardening. So many folks get overwhelmed when it comes to home hardening. I'm in line with probably a lot of you. The traditional standard was a 1/4 inch wire mesh for your vents, both for the underside of the house and your attic space. That has changed. It's down to 1/8 inch mesh. Super cheap DIY sort of project that will make the difference for that ember intrusion into the combustible spaces of your house that basically burn your house down from the inside out. Those are no-brainer, easy ones. We all have to replace a fence at some time, or we've got that happening for us. The gates are another big early win that you could change. Maybe you have to deal with the fence in the future, but the gate is the easy port right off the bat. There's all sorts of different vendors out there. Historically, your options were chain link or wrought iron, right? I'm not a person that wanted either of those on the side of my house. There's now vendors out there that sell metal product that looks like wood, planks and material on the side of that house, so you have options out there. And then decks. You guys don't have it as much up here as out in the river, but that leaf material accumulating on the decks, encapsulating the top of your joists with non-combustible foil tape doesn't allow those embers to get the tops of your joists going in your deck boards. And then also up against the house, if you're going down that home hardening deal, and I'm going to go take a look at a house at Fitch Mountain here in the next couple weeks, but they basically took up the first couple of boards next to the house, replaced those with a non-combustible plank material, put flashing at the point where the deck connected to the house, and and then a non-combustible couple planks on the side of the house, because that's what happens, right? Even if during regular summer you're meticulous about keeping your deck clear, when those offshore winds are blowing in the fall, it's knocking out all sorts of leaf material before the fire ever happens. That accumulates on your desk, and then when the fire happens, the ember cast out in the main front of the fire is what catches those leaves on fire that ultimately burn your house down. So those are the three kind of right off the bat. Vents, super low cost, totally doable. Gates, more expensive. And then deck, obviously. But then the other conversation is, if you can, the idea is to transition away from a deck to a patio, right? Because you've taken that ignition factor out. So if you find yourself at a spot where you have to repair or replace your deck, the question you should be asking yourself is, can we go down to ground level and just do a hardscape patio rather than that, with that potential wood deck? Jim mentioned it earlier, probably running out of time here, but I'll keep you guys informed. Veg management, the Sonoma Mountain Road was the example for Measure H coming through the area. One of the roles for Fire Safe Sonoma and myself is that we help coordinate and figure out what projects are the priority projects for the county as we go into this process of trying to create that wildfire resilience throughout the county. That crew, the Northern Sonoma County Fuels crew, is a 20-person crew. We've got over 1 million acres of land in Sonoma County. That's not something they can treat overnight. So we're asking the fire agencies, and Dan Russo, your local fire rep, who was Rancho Adobe, now Sonoma County Fire District, he has been integral in some of the projects that have been developed in your neck of the woods. So with you guys in your action plan and your risk assessment, you're looking at what is a risk to your community. You're contacting Dan, who's then working with Chief Jorgensen's partner to figure out what the best way to approach that project is to bring that resilience for your community. It's early on, just like you guys are seeing on your mountain. A lot of this work is going to be roadside because it's ingress, egress, right? It gets you out safely without direct flame impingement on your vehicles, but it also allows firefighters to get in more rapidly to be able to get to see that fire, hopefully, and put it out before it becomes a large conflagration. So the map I'm showing you is the project portal that it goes into, and then this is the Measure H Fuels crew out there doing the good work on Fountain Road, behind Fountain Road in Wheatley Road area. So we kind of talked about it earlier, but I really want to leave you guys with the idea that there is not one tool or one funding mechanism for the work that has to be done, right? You guys coming together as a community is the huge first step. What is the risk to our community? What can we do about it? What do we think those projects are? You have to identify those projects and memorialize them so that then we can figure out what the appropriate funding mechanism is. And so it may be use the landowner, right? Jim and I talked about the roadside, that you know, the work that was done recently, chainsaws, chippers, heavy equipment, lots of personnel, maintenance for it as it grows back. Could be a pair of hand shears or a locker, right? And if you go into your greenways, you can, right? So there are projects that absolutely can be taken on by the landowner that then creates that resilience for the entire community. The community HOA working together, nonprofit grants, all the way up through federal grants, right? But grants, there's only so many out there, and they're not going to hit everything. So that's where I really challenge you guys to think outside the box about what we can do as residents in the county to be able to help provide the defense for our firefighters so that they can more effectively bring that offense during those future fires. And so then again, grazers. I had a buddy that was giving me a hard time a couple weeks ago. He said, Ben, we're doing it all wrong. Burning grass and high-fiving. We should be grazing. And I said, Joe, you're absolutely right. We got Jim up on the mountain. He's doing his deal. Matter of fact, I educated him about the collars he told me about. He's looking to make that happen. So grazing is an option. Any entity that comes to you and says there's one way to do things, that's a red flag, right? You guys are in grazing country. This is a great opportunity. But Jim also talked about the beneficial fire through Fire Forward and the other prescribed burn associations out there. the community work parties like we talked about with the tool trailer through Fire Safe Sonoma, the H Fuels crew, Chief Jorgensen and his personnel are doing the strategic ridgetop breaks as a general rule, and some of the more major evacuation routes, right? Bennett Valley Road was a biggie that during the Tubbs fire and then again for the glass fire, there was a lot of concern about the time it took Oakmont to be able to get out of Oakmont. People are creatures of habit. Everything's to the left when you head out from Oakmont, the doctor's office, the grocery store, going out to dinner, right? So in a low frequency, high stress event, your body's gonna revert to what it knows. And so everybody went left. And so I challenged Chief Jorgensen and the public infrastructure crews to treat Bennett Valley Road so they've got another route back into the Santa Rosa Plain. And so that second route out of there. You guys are a little bit behind the power curve as a rule, right? Because you've got the one way in, one way out. But you also have the benefit of the grass fuel model compared to timber and brush elsewhere in other locations in the county. Evacuations. Know your zone. I hope you all know your zone. The Central Coast Firewise Community, there was things that we all took for granted that their residents knew, that they knew. Please, these are maps that are provided by SoCo Emergency. Maybe print it out somewhere, because while we may have it in our head, our kids may not, right? So we need to be, as a family, communicating what our zone is and what our adjoining zones are, so that when we have that rapidly expanding incident, hey, I know it's not 5 Juliet 2, but 6 David 1's right on the other side of the hill and it's coming my way, right? So, know your evacuation zone, have a plan, 2 routes out. Hopefully the one thing you keep getting beat on over the years with Jim and the Firewise community is 2 routes out. In a perfect case, we want 2 routes out of the community, because road can become blocked, fire can impact that road before you get there. 2 routes is what we're looking for you to do. Folks, have a destination where you plan on going. That's come up from a couple of our Firewise communities here in the last couple of months, that they've been surprised and disappointed that the Sheriff's Office and Department of Emergency Management didn't tell them where to go and how to get there. That is not the first responders' priority in those rapidly expanding incidents. Their job in life is to say, you are not safe in 5 Juliet 2, you need to move, right? You need to get out of harm's way. And so while it may take you 6 hours to get to wherever you're going, maybe you're going up to Santa Rosa and you're stuck in bumper traffic for 6 hours, we just need to get you offline. With those wind-driven fires, right, it's a narrow, fast-moving fire. So if you can get offline by a quarter mile, a mile, it's gonna be crazy behind you, but you're safe. And that's the ultimate goal of the sheriff's deputies, the firefighters, and the Department of Emergency Management, is to make sure that you're out of harm's way. So if you find that you're continuing to travel out of the area and the column of smoke is still over the top of you, you need to figure out a way to get offline at some point, because you're competing with the fire and you don't want to beat that, right? And then I will leave you with the checklist. So one of the after action deals from the Woodside fire was that we all are very familiar with go bags at this point. That's basic supplies, right? And it's your important paperwork. But there's other things in your house that you, if you have time, you want to save, right? But we haven't written them down. So we have multiple accounts of folks doing multiple laps through their house, trying to figure out what it was what they want to take that they can't replace. And so the suggestion made by their community was, create a checklist of the things that you know you want to take, and know that you only have a certain amount of space in your vehicle to get that stuff out, right? So you could have a moving truck size list of things that you want to take, but you're trying to get those into a Subaru that you can't get in there. So not only should you create that checklist and make sure it's reasonable, but actually take the time and try to pack it in a rapid fashion, because that's what you're going to have to do during that evacuation order. So Marika's looking at it, that this evacuation component of your action plan is maybe not necessarily the full-fledged drive to Casey Park to rally at the evacuation point, it's go, time yourself to figure out how long it takes you to gather up all the things that you decide you have to go to the analysis. That's something that's going to make a difference down the street. And then in the early moments of the deal, we've been so accustomed now to all the different social media and data index that the notice went out. People's cell phones alerted, their zone was told to go, but then somebody took the time to look at the countywide evacuation map, and they're like, well, it's not on the evacuation map, so do we really need to go? If you got it in some form or fashion that you need to go and you're in the wrong spot, don't second guess it, go, right? Because a warning is get set, and an order is you go. You're not asking, you're not thinking, you're not doing anything, getting your family and your things, leaving you. So I was asked when I took the job, what does success look like to you, Ben, 10 years down the road? And I'll put to you as a crowd that we now know where topography and critical winds align, we will have devastating fire. So we will have another Tubbs fire. We will have another Nuns fire. Maybe it's not in our lifetime, but they will happen, right? So that fire, when the winds are blowing over 100 miles an hour and you have relative humidity, unlike our East Coast friends, that's at 3%, and embers igniting spot fires 2 miles out in advance of the fire, that footprint of that fire is going to be the same. We cannot change that. What we can change, and this picture shows, is that the people have been evacuated safely, so we have no loss of life. Our homes are protected and ready to go, so they're resilient to that fire, and the fire blows past them, but it doesn't burn them. And the great work that Chief Jorgensen and CAL FIRE and the other organizations are doing out in the undeveloped areas allows that fire to stay on the forest floor. It's going to burn through that stand of trees, but when the smoke clears, people are there, homes are there, the environment and the forest are still intact, and we move on. Because again, California is a fire adaptive ecosystem. It's the place that we love because of fire. And so fire is the thing that we are going to experience. We shouldn't be afraid of it. We're doing it right. We're always wildfire. Thank you.
All right, so Ben, thank you, and your organization and Marika in particular have been extremely helpful with me in getting this community organization up and running. So I appreciate that. I need to make one more introduction. I sort of forgot. Walter Taylor Carl, can you stand up for a second? Walter is I'm referring to him as our intern, but he is a college new grad who met me at one of these fire seminars and said, hey, I'd like to volunteer to help. And I looked at his resume and I said, wow, you know GIS, a lot about geographic information systems. So we discussed, and Walter created a system that allows you to look at our entire community and see where the fuel loads are, what type of fuel loads. And then you can zoom in down to an individual property and see the fuel loads on that property. So it turns out that these satellite systems that do mapping use LiDAR cameras now, and they map like how tall is the vegetation and what is the nature of the vegetation. Is it short grass, medium grass, tall grass? Is it brush, or is it like big trees? And then it maps the different fire dynamics for the different types of vegetation. So Walter's done a nice little project. I'm going to put it on our website. We'll include it in the newsletter. That allows you to interactively go look at the community and your zone, neighbors, whatever, and see like what's the real fuel load in this area. Do I live in an area with high fuel load or relatively small fuel load? And I mean, playing around with it, I found it pretty interesting and a little bit surprising. So I'd recommend, I want to thank you for your work, Walter, and we'll expose it to everybody shortly. I had visions of Walter giving demos and stuff here today, but the forum didn't really support that. But anyway, thank you for the work, and we'll bring it to everybody shortly. Any questions, comments, any go ahead.
I have one question. I don't know if other people come up, but I don't know if this is Sonoma County, this is the state of California, but a lot of us have ponds, and to get them drenched or reworked every once in a while, the state, the county puts you through a
I believe that's a county grading, and I think it's a grading permit because you're moving soil and all that good stuff. I can look into it for you and figure out what that looks like. I will tell you that the fire hawks specifically at this point, you may think that the water source is a long ways away for the helicopter to go find it, but we actually don't want the helicopter dipping right out of the edge of the fire because it's a choreographed event between the fixed wing air tankers that are moving at a much higher rate of speed and the helicopters and the 4 Air Tactical Group Supervisor. They've got a crazy amount of resources that they're trying to juggle. So the helicopters will go find a dip site elsewhere. In your case, it may be Petaluma River, right? It's not the end of the world to hit the river and come back. But I will definitely look at into.
They actually came to our pond and you could see the helicopter dipping and it wasn't deep enough and the bucket would fall over. And said, well, if it would help us, we could maintain the pond better so they would actually have the water source. And because consequently they had to go and dump that water. They found it somewhere else, I guess. But instead of making it so difficult and expensive for us to maintain a deep, pond so that they can come dip when the fire is in Santa Rosa, they seem to be working against us.
Okay, so here's what I would say, Ben, if you can find a contact or information that I can share with the community, because I know of several people here who have ponds that are filled in with sediment, and now the county says, yeah, but you can't go dig that pond out. And then at that point, it's not really a pond anymore, it's just kind of like a wet spot. So it's frustrating to people. Sure. I'm sure there's some logic for it, but I frankly don't know what it is.
I mean, I think it would help us all. We could put out our own fire. We could drop a, water sucker of some sort out of there. Like my brother-in-law has a tank that he drops in, or a pump that he drops into ours. So we could put out any fire within 100 feet of our house.
Yeah.
And so if we can't get it deep enough to be able to put a pump in there, it's not going to help us. And we've been left on our own many times to fight our own fire.
Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, thank you all for, sitting through this with us. I want to thank all the people in the yellow shirts, because not only did they do a lot of work to put this party on, but they paid for it all.
Folks, everybody, let's get a photograph with
Yeah.
We got a lot of good people here today. Do you have emails?
Oh.
Do I have emails? Yeah.
Okay, go.